Das Lulav is ein Halacha Ches. Kama shiur oichkom min mehem. How long does each of these species have to be? The length of it. How long? Kama shiur oichkom min mehem. So the Peirush says, what is the length required? Lulav ein poros me'arbor tvochim. Lulav is not less than 4 tvochim. V'moya orach kol shu was a bit longer than 4 tvochim kosher. It is kosher mididosoi mishetosoi bilvad. When you count the 4 tvochim, it means from the point of the spine. In other words, the top leaves, the top leaves head up further beyond the head of the spine, and therefore you don't take the leaves that are at the top. The Mosdos and the myrtle and the willow, they can't be less than 3 tvochim. If they're longer than that, ksherim are dropped, they're kosher. And even if in the myrtles there's only 3 leaves that are still fresh, it's kosher. But it has to be at the top. If you tie them together, when he ties it together, he has to make sure that they're not straight on the top, but rather that the lulav protrudes a tefach, or yoiser, or more. The shiur esrig, the size of an esrig, has to be at least the size of an egg. If it's a little bit larger, it's kosher. And the Maggid Mishnah on lulav ein poros midal tzvochim cites Sukkah. The source is Sukkah 32b. Amar Yudam and Shmuel. That the shiur of Chodes and Arav is 3 and lulav is 4. That because the lulav has to protrude a tefach. Rae Gann says that we count only the spine of the lulav, a tefach. And Allah is Rabbi Yochanan. Now goes Maimonides cites a brayso like Rabbi Yochanan that there are 5 that have a shiur of a tefach. And one is the spine of the lulav has to be a tefach more than the hadasim and the arovas. Now, hadasim and arovas is not less than 3. The Rebbe disagrees. That it's 3 tvochim, the smaller type of tvochim, because there's a tefach, there's a larger tefach and a smaller tefach, which is 10. That they are altogether 10. It's boys with figuring the thumbs like Rav Tafel. Rav Tafel required that the Chodes and Arav should be 3 tvochim in an amor of 5 tvochim. There's a disagreement. There is 2 measures for a amor. One is 5 tvochim and one is 6 tvochim. So if we figure that an amor is 18 inches, it would make a difference if it's divided by 5 or by 6. And we're talking about by 5. And you divide it up into 6 sections. And 3 portions is the length of the Chodes and the Arav as well. Rebbe explains that is 10 finger breadths, the Godol, with the thumbs. When you have an amor of 6 tvochim, and each tefach there's 4 finger breadths. Thus, 3 tvochim is 12 thumb breadths. And the Rambam didn't say which tefach we're talking about. Therefore, he would agree that we're talking about the 6 tvochim, and therefore, the Hadass and Arav have to be 12 thumb breadths. The Maggid Mishnah cites that some of the Go'onim and the later Rishonim agree with the Ravid. But the Riv doesn't bring the words of the Rav Tafel that we're talking about a measurement of 5 tvochim. He only needs that the spine of the lulav should go out from the Chodes of tefach. And it could be that he is of the opinion like Shmuel, who paskins Rav Tafel, that it's enough with a smaller measure of tvochim rather than the bigger one, and not like the Tanakama, who needs tvochim that would be larger. And in 3 tvochim, there's 12 egdolim, which make it larger. And Allah is not like Shmuel. by shiur lulav with its leaves, only Rabbi Yochanan, that the shedler is counted without the leaves, and therefore would be 4 tefachim. The Mishnah argues there's no connection between the measure of the lulav with its leaves with regard to the question of the 5 tefachim. One has nothing to do with the other. Therefore, Rabbi Yochanan disagrees on all the above. He says the spine of a lulav has to be going out of the hodos of tefach, and a tefach is usually 4 thumb breadths. What the Gemara says, you don't need a tefach godol. That's only according to Shmuel, and they rely on the Rosh who pushes off the opinion of the Riv and the Rambam that they didn't pass like Rab Tarfon. And he adds, Rabbi Yochanan doesn't disagree on Shmuel in the measurement of the tefach. They just disagree if the lulav itself has to be daled tefachim, or meaning the spine, or that the head of the olim can be counted in those 4 tefachim. Therefore, we hear from this according to the Riv, they're disagreeing also in the measure of the tefachim as well. The Magen Mishnah cites the Bala Ito. He doesn't say the Halacha of Tafen, just he states that the Gemara as it said, as it is the text. Still, it would seem that the majority of the Meforshim and the Ravid that the Rav and Adasa should be 10 lengths of a thumb. The Shulchan Aruch in Tuf Reish Nun, which is 650, codifies the Halacha. The shiur Hadas and Harov is 3 tefachim, and the spine of the lulav is 4 tefachim, in order that the spine of the lulav should go out from the Hadas at Tefach. When we're talking about an Alma that has 5 tefachim. Now what you do is you take this 5 tefachim and you make it 6. For example, if 5 tefachim would be 30, it's not 30, but let's just say it would be 30. If you divide it by 5, each tefach would be 6, and if you divide it by 6, each tefach is 5. Therefore, we have a smaller tefach, Tzemem Gimel Hodus, and we have to take out 3 of the tefachim of the 6 for the Hodus and Arova, which would be 2.5 of 5, which is 10 thumb breadths, and the shiur of the spine of the lulav should be 13 thumb breadths, and a third of a thumb breadth. And there are those who say that the shiur of the spine of a lulav is 14 thumb breadths. This is the Rambam, that even though we measure the Hodus and Arova with tefachim, smaller tefachim, still the lulav we measure with the larger one, and therefore we only divide it by 5 sections, and therefore it becomes bigger. That the Hodus and Arova are 3 tefachim, small ones, which are only 10 thumb breadths, but the spine of the lulav is more than them with a tefach, a rogel of 4 godlim. The Mechaber Mishon writes, there are those who say the shiur Hodus and Arov is 12 godlim, and the lulav would be 15 godlim. Like the Rambam and the Riv, Bala Ito, the Halacha like the Tanakama, that every tefach has 4 godlim. Therefore, the shiur Hodus and Arov is 3 times 4 is 12, and the lulav has to go out another tefach. So you have actually 16, I said 15 before, 16 thumb breadths. The Ramah adds, we try to do like the Rambam, to get the Hodus and Arova that are 12 thumb breadths, and the lulav should be 16. Mishnah Berurah says, but the Evan, it's enough that the lulav should have 13 and a third, and the Hodus and Arova are 10. Like those who say the Halacha like Rab Tarfon, by Hodus and Arova, and including the spine of the lulav is also small tefachim. However, less than that is possible even if there's nothing else to be gotten. If they were a little longer, they're kosher. And Magen Mishnah cites the Rif, the Lulav Arova, there's no shiur above it. And the shiurim that I mentioned, that's only, it shouldn't be less than that. And also, Rabbeinu Menachos brings from Menachos 42a. The Lulav that has a shiur, a minimum shiur. That it shouldn't be less than that, but it doesn't have a shiur above. And he adds that that's the regard to the minim that all are called lulav, and that's what the Rif says in the Gemara. Even if there isn't in every only in every myrtle twig only 3 fresh leaves, it's kosher. It has to be at the top of the myrtle twig. The Magen Mishnah cites Hilchos Sukkah 33a that if they dried out and there were 2 fresh leaves on it, it's kosher. Malchizah has to be at the top. If he tied together the lulav, the spine of the lulav has to go out from the hodos and the arova 1 tefach or more. My Mishnah says even if the hodos and arova are 10 tefachim, the shadow of the lulav has to go above a tefach. And so is the das of the Rabbi Yitzchok Even Geis, and that's what all the Achronim say as well. From the Rambam, it would seem that only when it's tied together with the hodos and the arova does it have to be a tefach. But Rambam says even if he didn't put it together, it should be a tefach from the hodos. In the Halacha, you don't need to tie it together, but still it has to be visible outside the tefach. And the reason is because it is higher than all of them. What it says by a hodos and arova, there's no shiur above. That's only when the lulav is very large, and you can have a tefach above whatever it might be. And he concludes with, this still needs explanation. The Shulchan Aruch in 650 says there's no shiur above, and the others will say that even if he added the hodos narova, that the spine of the lulav has to go a tefach above them, like Rabbeinu Menachos, that even if he didn't tie them together. The shiur of the esrog is not less than the gebeya, and if it was larger, it's kosher. My Mishnah brings a machlokes. What's the smallest shiur? Rameir says like a walnut. Rabbi Yehuda says like an egg. And Rameir Rabbi Yehuda, Halacha says Rabbi Yehuda that it has to be the size of an egg. He cites sukkah, the shiur of an esrog, a large esrog, so you should be able to hold 2 in one hand. According to Rabbi Yehuda, he says even 1 in 2 hands. You know, Rabbi Yehuda, the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi, even and it's brought in the Gemara. According to Rabbi Yossi, there is no maximum size for esrog. And because Maimonides cites Sukkahs 35a, that's the opinion of Rabbi Kiva as well. Who once came in actually with a sukkah with an esrog on his shoulder. Shulchan Aruch in 648 paskins that esrog is small, less than the gebeya is possible, but if it's a gebeya, even if it's you can see it's not finished yet, it's still kosher. To be halacha in 648, cites of Sam Sofer, that's enough for gebeya of our times, even though that our eggs have become smaller according to the slach. By esrog, everyone agrees that it goes according to the measurement of our time. The Kuri Yaakov is of the opinion that somebody who is able to should try to get it as large as 2 bayim. Shulchan Aruch concludes if it was large in any measure, it's kosher. Mishnah Berurah, even that he carried it on his shoulders, because so did Rabbi Kiva, because that somebody has all the species, you don't need to have them all in one time to carry them. So you can take the lulav and then afterwards the esrog, even though usually we expect to see them being carried together.